right. Hello, welcome. Okay, we're gonna go through acrylic techniques today. This is gonna help us with our Bob Ross day. I'm gonna just get you a little bit more comfortable with all your brushes and your paint and all that good stuff. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna learn how to just do a thin painted line. So we're gonna do that first of all by getting to know our brushes. And if I'm trying to paint something really thin, then I probably want a really thin brush to go along with it. So this one is looking pretty good to me, although these other ones are looking pretty good too. But I'm going to go for the smallest one. As usual, I have my water cup, and before I touch paint to water, I always dip my brush in water first. Now I can see some water droplets on my ferrule, and my bristles are pretty wet. So usually we dry it off. Okay. Now the thing about painting something very thin is that we'll need to thin out the paint. So I think I'm gonna go with some nice purple paint right here. Okay. But as you can see, it's still goopy on the brush. So what I want to do is thin it out, and I'll just do that by adding water to it. You're allowed to do that. Okay. So a couple drops should be good. All right, and then I'll have some nice thin paint, and it's not gooping up on my brush. You can see right there. So that should make it nice and easy. And make my way through this maze. Okay, and you can see, did it just fine. All right, next up, we're gonna learn how to do dry brushing. So once again, gotta get to know the brushes. Now, I usually like to do dry brushing with a bristly, scratchy kind of brush, but we could do it with something else too. So I'm going to do it with my flat brush, and I'm going to do it with the widest one I have in my little brush set. So I'm going to do this one. As usual, dip our brush in water first, but then it's soaking wet, and I'm about to do something called dry brushing, so my brush should be pretty dry. So I'm actually going to dry it off quite a bit. Okay. And so the bristles should be just barely, mostly dry, just barely moist, just so that the paint doesn't dry on it very quickly. And then I can also help create dry brushing by fanning out my little bristles like that with my fingers. Okay. And dry brushing is also about not using too much paint. Again, it's dry brushing, so it's mostly dry. So what I'll do is I'm going to just dip into some of this blue paint. I'm just going to get the very tips of the paintbrush, a little bit of paint on them, and I can practice on my palette. All you do is drag the brush, and it creates these little lines. Actually, let me just dip into a little bit more. There we go, and let me fan these out. There we go. Okay. And it's a very delicate little technique that you just have to get right. So it's a lot about feeling on this one and practice, because there's been too many times where I put too much paint on the brush. I got it a little wrong. So you just have to have the right amount. That looks pretty good to me. Just the tips are coated with some paint. And then what we do is we can use that to dry brush some rain coming out of this little cloud. You get these nice little lines. This is really great for doing texture, especially doing like wood grain. I use that a lot. Okay, one of the next things we'll do is splattering, which is really fun. I'm going to use that big brush again. Okay, and with splattering, that means I'm flinging paint off of my brush and onto another surface. So I'm going to try and fling paint onto this so it looks like little sprinkles. Now the thing is again that the paint is quite goopy. So what I'll need to do is water it down a little bit. If the paint is really thick and goopy, then it won't fling off the brush. Okay, so I'm just adding a little bit of water to it, thinning it out, and that looks like it should be fine. Okay, and what I'll do is stand back a little bit, and I'm going to take, this is my loaded brush. It has really wet red paint on it. I'm going to take a clean brush on top and just do that. Just tap it down, okay? Now, oh, made like a little happy face, haha, eyes and a mouth. Now if I tap the dirty brush down, the paint will fling back up onto me. So you always want to have the dirty brush on the bottom, getting tapped down, just like that, okay? All right, last thing is scumbling. It's my favorite thing to do, okay? definitely a Bob Ross thing, but I learned about scumbling in college, and I've been obsessed ever since. It is a wet on wet painting method where you blend wet paint into more wet paint. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a nice fade of going from orange to yellow with our little angry emoji face, okay? And I have to do that by using wet paint and blending them together. So I kind of have to know what I want to do beforehand because I need to work quickly. If we're doing wet on wet, I can't put a wet layer of paint down and then go take a break and then expect to blend another color into it because it would have dried by then. So I have to work quickly. So what I will do is I'm going to take my yellow paint, just going to work with yellow and orange. Okay, nice thick layer on here. Okay, being generous with the paint. All right, and once that's all smoothed out, and my paintbrush is still dirty, that's okay. I'm just gonna dip into some orange paint just a little bit. Just a little drop like that, actually maybe even a little less. Okay, just a little bit less, just like a little drop like that. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to blend from the top down, and my hand's gonna kind of go back and forth like that. And as I'm doing this, the orange is getting incorporated into the yellow because the yellow is still wet. And as I'm moving down, the brush is running out of orange. That way it creates a nice gradual change from orange to yellow. And I'll actually pick up a little bit more orange and start this again, just because I think I wanted a little more orange than that. All right, there you go. Nice. Okay, and I can smooth it out a little bit more if I want. There we go. And I created a nice gradual change from orange to yellow, and that is scumbling, wet on wet blending. Nice. So now you can do this, and good luck.